So I got this bamboo cutting board. I actually got it from Darlene at the Rustic Refinery. She just has a stash of them. I'm not really sure where they came from originally, but I'm sure you can find something like this in lots of different places, maybe even Walmart, Amazon, or maybe you can make one if you have the right tools. And what I'm going to be doing today, I want to show you how to use Polyvine Crackle Glaze, because we do have it all back in stock now in all 3 sizes. So you can get it. This is the big one, this is a liter, we have a half liter, and we have the little 100 mils. I do recommend getting at least the 500 mils because you will use this a lot. But a little goes a long way as well. And so what this is, I'll just give you a quick rundown. This is a 1-part crackle glaze, which gives a cracked paint effect, as opposed to a 2-part crackle that would actually go over top of your project and gives you a cracked, kind of like a cracked varnish look. A little bit different. This stuff is very, very easy to use. And I'm going to be applying rice paper onto here. So I actually was inspired because I did a workshop the other night with some of these. It was Darlene's idea for a workshop, but she's actually off this week. So I ended up doing the workshop. So I've never actually done one of these, but I did teach a workshop on it. And they turned out so beautifully. And I thought, oh, I really want to do one. And I knew I had the perfect paper for it. So the one I'm actually going to end up using is this one with this beautiful birdhouse and the little bird and the cherry blossoms. I just love this design. This is an ITD rice paper, and the SKU for it is R1425L. So you can search for that on ninniesnapkins.com. I don't know if we have any in stock, because what actually happened was when I ordered them and they came in, they got wet in transit, which never happens, but it happened. And so some ink from not a rice paper, but there was a stamp on another piece of paper. The ink from these doesn't bleed, but the stamp that somebody had put on actually bled into the papers and we couldn't sell them. So I'm just using it now, but so we don't have any in stock, but we do have them as special order. So you can go ahead and order one anyway, and then we will bring it in for you. And because this is an A3 paper, it's quite large, and it's also got this gorgeous design, which I also think would be fabulous on here. It just, the shape and the size of these are just perfect for these cutting boards. We might even have these designs in A4, probably like separately, or maybe they're smaller. I'm not really sure. I can't remember now. And then there's this one as well. This one is R1424L. And same thing. This is just, this one especially really seems to fit really well. So those are gorgeous. And then we even had this one, which was maybe a little small, but it depends on what you want to do. You know, if you just want to put something on one small portion, or, you know, something down here. This one is R1426L. So you can order any of those at ninniesnapkins.com. And I just, really love these designs. As soon as I saw this bird design, I knew I had to use it on something. And when we were teaching that workshop the other night, I thought, yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to do. So first things first is to do the crackle. So with a 2-step crackle, you need to paint a base coat of paint. Oh, I do want to mention, before the video, I did apply a bonding primer to this because it was a little bit shiny and non-porous. So to get the best adhesion out of paint, you want to put on a bonding primer. So this is Fusion's Ultra Grip. And ideally, you would let it cure for 12 hours. So I have coated the surface, one thin coat. It goes on clear. So that's very important anytime you're doing glass or metal or anything kind of shiny. This maybe didn't require it, but I like to just take that extra step just in case. And then I've got here, this is Country Chic. You can also get this and the bonding primer at ninniesnapkins.com. Country Chic all-in-one decor paint, which is similar to a chalk paint, but it is clay-based, and this color is Dark Roast, which is a very dark brown. And I'm using my Stamperia KR37 brush, which if you watch my videos before, you know I love these brushes, the flat brushes. This is the 1 inch, KR38 is the 1.5 inch. And they're just really nice brushes to work with. And I think for this video, I'm only going to paint the front, but I will finish this whole piece off and paint the back as well. So with the Crackle Glaze, your first coat is paint, and that's the color that your cracks are going to be, because next I'm going to apply a coat of Crackle Glaze, which goes on clear, and then you apply your top coat of paint. Should be a contrasting color. I'm going to use a white. And that's the layer that actually cracks. Sorry if I sound a bit off today. I've either got allergies or I'm not sure, but I've also probably had too much caffeine today. I'm feeling a little bit stuffed up. So this coat doesn't have to be perfect because really we're going to hide most of it. So I'm not even going to bother doing 2 coats of paint. Just going to do the 1. I think I'm going to have to stand up, or actually I'll just flip it around. And be a little careful here around this hole because I don't want a bunch of paint dripping down inside of it, and I will paint it eventually too. I just kind of want to do just the face of this board just to show you exactly how all this works. I asked on our page the other day what you'd like to see more tutorials of, and somebody did say like uses for rice paper, and I know that is a big thing for a lot of people. They've started decoupage with napkins, even though rice paper is actually more beginner friendly. But I think a lot of people get intimidated with rice paper because of the big, beautiful designs they often have. And you think, you know, what do I do with that? So yeah, I thought I had a great opportunity to show you one of the ways you can use rice paper. I'm just going around the edges now. So if you need a link to any of these products that I'm using, just let me know in the comments, and after the video, I'll put a link there. But pretty much everything I use except for the actual cutting board can be found at ninniesnapkins.com. Now that I thought I had everything I need, I've just realized I don't have a drawing tool. Oh, actually I do. This paint does dry really fast, but for the sake of the video, I'd like to speed that process up a little bit. And I've just got my thing raised up on blocks here. It just makes it easier to paint, I find. Okay, I'm gonna give that a quick dry. Using my Ranger Heat It tool. We carry these at Ninnie's Napkins. They're out of stock at the moment, but I will get more soon. I love this tool. This is Ranger Heat It tool. It's got paint all over it. But I love it because it's very quiet, so it's great for doing workshops and for filming videos. And it doesn't have a lot of airflow like a hairdryer would, so it doesn't blow my papers all over the table. But it does get quite hot. You can use it for embossing. And because this is a clay-based paint, it dries completely matte. It's got a really nice finish to it. Let me know if you have any questions about anything you see me doing. I'm happy to answer. I'll try and catch them during the video, but if not, I'll leave you a response after the video is finished. There, that's pretty dry already. If I wasn't filming a video, I'd probably let this dry a little bit longer and cure a bit longer, but I just kind of want to get moving with it. So the next step is the Crackle Glaze. Just giving it a quick little, not shake, but just kind of rotating it a bit to get it mixed up a bit. So it's totally clear. So I'm going to grab another brush. Actually, one moment, I'm going to throw this one in the sink. Another one of these KR37 brushes. I find these great for everything, for painting, for varnishing. They're just super smooth and soft and nice and flat. They're just a good size. So I'm going to do just kind of an even coat with this. You don't want to make it too thin, but you also don't want to just slather it on there so it's dripping everywhere. And one thing you will notice when you go over chalk paint with the Crackle Glaze is that it looks like it kind of pools, and like it resists in some places, and for some reason that really doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to have any effect on the crackle. And I just totally forgot that I actually didn't want to put too much crackle under the image. So that is an option. I mean, you don't have to cover this whole surface with the Crackle Glaze. You could just do it in certain areas where you want the paint to crack. So my original plan was just to do it up at the top and the bottom, only because like it is really nice to have the crackle behind your decoupage image. But in this case, because it's kind of such a detailed image, I thought that the cracks might take away from that a little bit, but we'll see, because it's too late now. You don't have to be really particular about how you put this coat on. It's your final coat that has some really kind of important instructions that go along with it, which we'll get to when I apply that coat, but you can use heat to dry this, no problem. Some products you can't, so that's important to know. Some products, especially like the two-part crackles, don't work in certain temperatures. But this stuff is totally fine to dry. And I'm just doing the sides as well because I want some crackle down the sides. And again, you don't have to be perfect with this stuff. If you miss places, it just isn't going to crackle there, and maybe that makes it look a little more natural. So I'm just going to throw this brush in the sink because now I'm done with this one, and then I'll come back and give this a quick dry. So with this Crackle Glaze, it does dry a little bit shiny. So sometimes you'll think, holy cow, why isn't it drying? But it is actually dry, especially in places like here where it kind of pools a bit more. It might always remain shiny. And it's important to note that when I applied it, I did go in all the same direction. Like I said, that's not necessary. You don't have to. But when I'm applying the final coat of paint, the white coat, you'll actually get the best crackle effect if you go opposite. You paint the opposite direction. So I'm going to be doing my painting this way. You could also do a little bit in one direction, a little bit in the other, and get kind of a different effect. But you're going to get the biggest cracks if you go the opposite direction of what you did your Crackle Glaze. This is drying pretty quickly. So for the white coat of paint, And oh, I should mention, this is good with any kind of water-based paint. So you can use Crackle Glaze with acrylic paints, with like craft type paints, like the Stamperia Allegro acrylic paints that we sell. Or you can use it with chalk paints or clay-based paints like the Country Chic. You can use it with Fusion Mineral Paint because it's also water-based as opposed to oil-based. So I'm going to use Country Chic again. I really like the way that the clay-based paint reacts to the crackle. But Fusion works really well with it as well. And the color I'm using this time is Vanilla Frosting, which is probably our best-selling Country Chic color. It's just a really nice kind of warm off-white without being too yellow. So, you know, if you don't want a really, really bright white, you want something just slightly off, Vanilla Frosting is really, really nice color. We use it for a lot of our decoupage projects here. Use it in a lot of videos. That's why it ends up being a big seller for us. Similarly, if you want to use Fusion paint, the color Raw Silk is a very similar color. So we're almost dry here. It does have to be completely dry before we can get started on the next step. I should do this like a cooking show where I have one ready to go and I can just swap them out. We're getting there. You can see some spots are still, that one's actually is a bit wet, but some stay a little bit shiny. It's a good idea to keep your heat tool moving so that, because like I said, it does get quite hot. You don't want it to bubble your paint. Sometimes in classes I see people kind of just hold it in one spot, and that's not really ideal. Especially if you're going to get really close, you've got to keep it moving. Almost there. Just a couple of stubborn spots left. So once I start applying this top coat of paint, you're going to actually see it start to crackle pretty much right away. Because this paint dries so fast, it's as it dries is when the cracks form. But then you get kind of the most dramatic crackling when you apply the heat to it. But you don't have to apply heat. It just, like I said, as it dries, it cracks. Okay, I think we're good. That one's a little damp still, but that's all right. Okay, one more little cup. And some white paint. Probably too much white paint. Oh, you know what? This spot looks still pretty wet. Okay. So as I mentioned, I'm going to go now in the opposite direction. I applied the Crackle Glaze this way. I'm going to do the paint this way to get the most dramatic crackling effect. Now this is the important part. This is where the biggest mistakes are made. You cannot go over this paint once it's applied because you will just peel it right off. So you're going to get a generous amount of paint on your brush, nothing crazy. But you don't want it to be too dry either. And you're going to try and go right across in kind of one fluid movement. Oh. And I can go there a little bit, but now if I drag my brush across again, you can see it's already starting to crackle. If I drag my brush across again, it's going to just peel that paint right off. So you really need to make sure you're only doing this once, and it's very, very hard for people to resist doing that, I've noticed. It just takes some getting used to. Now, if you do end up with like a big glob of paint somewhere, or a spot like that where you missed a bit, sure, okay, you can go a little bit, like here, but see how I'm trying to pull that off, or I'm trying to get off this thick bit of paint here, and it's actually peeling the paint right off, so I'm just going to leave that. Worst case scenario, I think once this paint's dry, I could probably sand off that little ridge. But it just takes a little bit of getting used to how much paint you should use. Actually, maybe I'll change direction here just so you can see. I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough paint to go right from one end to the other. You can see the difference in how it's going to look. So if you see you're starting to get a dry spot there, just stop and get a bit more paint. But I mean, we're going for a vintage rustic look, not for perfection. So if you have these little areas where you don't get enough paint, that's okay. Just kind of adds to the whole rustic look. I think it's really cool to watch the cracks forming. I will never get tired of Crackle Glaze. I think it's just awesome stuff. And then I think I'll flip it around to do the top because it's a bit of a long reach. So as you can see, you don't really end up seeing much of that brown coat that we did in the beginning. Don't do it. It's very tempting. Okay, flip it around. Now I think I'll go back this direction again. That part's really thick there. So like I said, the most important thing is just don't keep going over it. I get a lot of customers emailing me and saying, it's not crackling, what am I doing wrong? And generally that is exactly what they're doing, is they just, you know, paint the way you would normally paint, go back and forth, and it just doesn't work very well that way. The other thing is that a lot of people, understandably, don't understand the difference between a two-step and a one-step crackle. I actually saw somebody post the other day, it wasn't on my group, but on a different decoupage group, and they were, you know, doing a bottom coat of paint, and then they were applying the Crackle Glaze over top of it and didn't understand why nothing was cracking. And it was because what the look they were going for was the two-step, where you apply your coat of paint first and usually your decoupage first, and then you do a base coat of the crackle and then a top coat of the crackle, and those crack, and then generally you would rub a crack highlighter into it to kind of enhance them, which might be like a like an aging wax or an antiquing wax, or I know with Polyvine they actually sell a crack highlighter. But yeah, if you just apply like a one-step crackle over top of everything, it's not going to do anything at all. You need to put that top coat of paint over. This is really interesting, actually, where it was kind of pooling. I'm seeing cracks form, which I've never really seen that before. There we go. So now I'm going to use my heat tool again. And just make sure that's all really dry, and then we're ready to start the decoupage. This project's actually going really quickly. So I'll turn this again so you can see it better. The one thing I find with all these crackles is they're it's very difficult to get really consistent results. Like, you never really seem to know what you're going to get. One thing I didn't mention is if you apply the paint really thinly, you do tend to get smaller cracks that are more close together. If you apply it more thickly, the cracks tend to get bigger and more spread apart. And so it's kind of nice that, you know, to have a bit of both. So I have here where it was thin, and up here it's a little bit thicker. So I'm actually going to set that aside for a minute. It's almost dry. I'll lift it up here so maybe you can get a better look at the cracking. It's looking really good. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to start water cutting my rice paper. Just let that finish drying. I might have to do another cutting board with this image. I just love these so much. So I've got a little cup of water here. And if you've ever done napkin decoupage and you know about water cutting napkins, you use a very fine brush. For rice paper, I like to use something a little bit thicker. So this one is actually KR29, which is a Stamperia drop brush in size 5. I think this is a really good brush for water cutting rice paper. And you just want to get some water on your brush and just draw the line that you would want to cut. And if you don't know, the reason we do this rather than cutting with scissors is because it gives us this nice feathered edge here, which really blends in a lot better into our piece. If you do straight lines with scissors, they just really stand out, and it really just looks like you cut out an image from a piece of paper and glued it onto something, rather than kind of, I mean, the idea here is we're trying to make it look kind of hand painted. So I just do a few inches at a time and then pull to separate the paper. And if you've never worked with rice paper, but you've worked with napkins, I think you can already tell right now just the difference. And, you know, with napkins, I'd be pulling like this and they just kind of pop apart. Rice paper is more durable, takes a little bit more force. Not a lot, but a bit more, which is why it's so beginner friendly, because if you place it down and you don't like the placement, you can always pick it back up again. You don't want any straight edges. We want to get rid of all the straight edges. There we go. That's all you need to do with that. Looks really nice. So I'm going to bring our board back, and I think it's dry. Just that one spot there. I've just had a thought, and I suppose that if I did really decide I didn't want these cracks behind the paper, which I think I've decided I do, but if I didn't, I think I could just go over with another coat of white paint and it would just hide all that. But I think they're gonna look okay. Now this is a little too big for my board, so I can either trim it down a little bit more or I can wrap it around. I think I'm going to opt to trim it. So I'm going to do it right on the piece now. Definitely want to make sure I get the bird on there. No, you know what? Maybe I will wrap it around. But if I wanted to remove it, I could just now kind of draw a line here and separate that. So, how I'm going to apply my rice paper. If you've seen me do napkins, I usually use varnish as glue, but for heavier papers like rice paper, I like to use a decoupage gel or a decoupage glue. So I have Fusion, Decoupage, and Transfer Gel, which would be my preference, but this one is just about empty. And I think I've only got one big one left right now, so I'm not going to open another one. Stamperia rice paper glue is very, very similar to the Fusion, Decoupage, and Transfer Gel, but the Fusion one is actually just a little bit cheaper. So that's the only reason I prefer it. And it's easier for me to get because it's made here in Canada as opposed to Hungary. But we usually have both in stock. But I'm going to be using the rice paper glue today. Both of these are just like a thick glue and they both dry completely matte. So if I get some up here, it's not going to matter. You're not going to see it, especially because I will varnish over this entire piece to protect it. And I don't have another brush now. One moment, please. I'll put this one in the sink. Another KR37 brush. We've got a lot of these here. So you don't have to do this next step, but a lot of people really like to wet their rice paper. They find it just makes it easier to apply, and it kind of stretches out the fibers and helps so that it doesn't wrinkle. I don't always do this, but I will today just to show you. I've got this mister bottle. You can get these from a few different companies. I think Fusion sells them. These ones I bought off Amazon. I wouldn't recommend them because out of, I think, 8, pretty sure I've only got one left that actually works. But it gives a really nice fine mist. You can just use a normal spray bottle too. This one's just a little bit less messy, I think. There, so now my paper's kind of nice and wet. Oh, and I guess I should apply a layer of glue first. So you want to be generous with your glue. You definitely don't want any dry spots. And if you're working with a large piece like I am, you might want to do kind of half and half so that the glue doesn't dry while you're placing your paper. Because if you get dry spots under your decoupage, you're going to get bubbles. So I'm just going to do the left half. I'm going to stand up so I can see a bit better. I really want to get that bird on there. There, I think that's pretty good. So now I'm going to go right over the top again with some more glue. And really what this does is helps you to smooth it out and to push out any bubbles and wrinkles. So kind of start in the middle and work my way out to the outside. I'm not going to worry about these edges right now. I'll take care of them after. This is the important part, is the face. So now maybe you can see what I mean about the cracks, how I kind of wish I didn't do the crackle behind, because I think it's hiding the image a little bit. It is nice to have some crackle showing through, but I think I wish I had done a bit less, especially up here where the bird is. But it's really all personal preference. And like I said, if you want to do that, where you don't want to crackle the entire thing, just don't put the crackle glaze everywhere. You can kind of put it selectively where you want it. The other thing about wetting your rice paper is that I think the glue can kind of absorb into it better. And then maybe if you do have a dry spot underneath, and then you apply your glue over top, it just kind of soaks through and maybe helps to adhere it. So try it both ways. You'll learn your own technique of how you like to do it. But yeah, just don't go cheap on the glue. See, with napkins, you couldn't keep doing this over and over the top because they just start to become really fragile. And you get my blocks back. There, I'm really liking this though. I just love this rice paper design. Oh, so now I'm going to do these edges. A little bit of glue underneath. And just use my brush to wrap it down. This is why I like a really nice flat, wide, soft brush. Look, I just peeled a bit of that off. I guess it wasn't totally dry, a bit of the paint, but I don't mind that. I think that adds a bit of character. I'll wrap that around the back for now. Like I said, later I'll come back and I'll paint this. I'll probably just paint it solid white. Just like a finished look. Especially I might sell this piece. So that's how it looks so far. I really, really like that. I'm going to need more of this rice paper. Okay. Brilliant. So now I could stop here, but now there's lots of different ways that I could embellish this. So I've had some ideas. For one, I might use, once this is dry, I might use a little bit of rub and buff on the edges. We'll see. I think I probably will. And we have this in both gold and black. And if you follow Darlene from the Rustic Refinery, she will often use a combination of both. I think she usually starts with black and then does the gold over top. And that just gives a really nice antique-y feel. So this little tube goes a really long way, and you just get a rag and you wrap it around your finger, and then you just dab a little bit on. And then you just run your finger over kind of the edges. So we'll see, maybe I'll do that. The other thing is I have some rope here. I think I'm going to tie around the top here. And then I want to add an embellishment, which I'm not going to do in this video. But I have this really, really cute bird mold. We've got a few of these left from Stamperia. They are KACMA 546. So you can search that at ninniesnapkins.com if you need to have one of these. This is the Canadian price, $39.99. So US, it's going to be somewhere around $30 probably. And we do ship worldwide. But I love these little birdhouses. So what I was thinking is wrapping the rope around, and then I might actually put one of these right over the rope, and I'll probably just paint it white and do a little bit of antiquing on it, or maybe even a little bird. We'll see. But the reason I'm not going to do this today is because I already own this mold and it's at home. So I don't want to open another one. We've done lots of videos on resin. And this is the resin that I would use, amazing casting resin. Again, available at ninniesnapkins.com. We've done tons of videos, and we actually, on our YouTube channel, we have a video just on how to use the amazing casting resin. So if you've never tried that, it's very, very easy. It's very satisfying. It's a lot of fun. I like putting resin molds on lots and lots of my projects. And then I'm going to go over the entire thing, I guess, before I put rope on with, I don't have it right here, but Polyvine Decorator's Varnish, and that'll just protect it from dirt and fingerprints and actually even UV, and it'll just make it so that I can wipe it down. It actually is even food safe, so if you wanted to use this to serve cookies or cheese and crackers, you totally could. Mine's probably just going to be decorative. But I think I'm going to leave it here for today. I showed you what I wanted to show you. I showed you how to use the Crackle Glaze. You can see how easy it is. And I showed you how to apply your decoupage rice paper. We have hundreds upon hundreds of rice paper designs available at ninniesnapkins.com. So go check those out. Some of them are in stock. Some are available by special order. So you order them and then we get them from the printer, and they ship. Special order papers usually ship out in about 2 weeks. In stock ones much faster, sometimes even the same day. But yeah, I think that's it. So if you're watching on the replay, leave me a comment if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer. If you watched live, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you all learned something. And if not, I just hope you were entertained. But yeah, enjoy the rest of this beautiful sunny day, and we'll see you all very soon. Bye-bye.